Hey everyone, it's Jen. Normally with Spirited Saturdays, today with Smashing Sundays. Feels pretty good to be smashing today. I'm enjoying it. Never been a smash, or a Sunday. So this is awesome. So thanks for having me this Sunday. And today we are talking about how to push or motivate yourself in recovery without going too far and backtracking. And so we've talked about being kind to yourself in terms of being gentle and forgiving with yourself without using that as a justification to slide backwards. And now we're going to talk about how to motivate yourself forward without blurring the line between recovery and rigidity, or recovery and taking on too much, or achieving the perfect recovery, because as we know, that can also lead us back into an eating disorder mindset. I think when you're making strides in recovery, it's important to keep your objective in mind. And it may be that you have the best intention and that you really, really want recovery, and that is wonderful. And you need to be proud of yourself for making that decision and establishing that mindset. And so, in order to really strive toward recovery and work through that, without pushing too far, it's really helpful to have support in place to help you determine what is healthy and what is potentially self-sabotaging, or what is actually coming from the healthy part of you as opposed to what is coming from the eating disordered part, or what the eating disorder is playing off as helpful. And so the idea is to keep redirecting your objective toward recovery as a whole. I always used to say, with no strings attached. Still say it. For example, if you're trying hard to manage one particular symptom, such as, perhaps you have you struggle with restriction and you're trying to eat enough, but you're finding that you're having urges to compensate for that food. You want to catch that and, again, redirect your objective toward recovery. And so this can really involve a continuous tweaking of balance. You want to make sure that you're not doing something that scares you to the point of not being able to tolerate it, but you also don't want to allow this intolerance to pull you back to a place where you're too scared to challenge yourself at all. So if you faced it, oh no, that's too scary, and slide and pulling way, way back. So challenge is key. And finding the right balance of challenge is key. Recovery is often uncomfortable. That's sort of, how it goes. But that's also why it's so rewarding. And so just because something feels uncomfortable doesn't mean you should stop practicing it. But if it starts to sabotage your recovery, then you may want to temporarily settle at a place that is more comfortable, but not necessarily easy. Perhaps this place is safer, safe ER, but not safe to the point of receding back into illness. And so this can be a holding place while you figure out with your treatment team or whoever is helping you the best way to move forward. Recovery doesn't always have to be just about tolerating something. Tolerance doesn't have to be this terrible thing. It has a really bad connotation, I think. Tolerance can actually mean experiencing new things and new feelings and new thoughts. And so ask yourself how you're tolerating the recovery process. Are you tolerating it by feeling the feelings, in which case I suggest that you explore and express those feelings? Or are you tolerating discomfort by resolving it with other eating disordered symptoms or thoughts or urges? If you're pushing yourself not to purge, for example, but the only way you're tolerating that is by trying to eat less so that you won't be as uncomfortable. Obviously, that's not balance, and that's where you would really need to check with yourself and with your therapist. And so if you're, sorry, yeah, and you would have to, look again at what you want and what you're aiming for. And the goal, okay, so you want to really maintain an awareness of what you're looking for, and catch this awareness early on. Like, if you're feeling that you have an urge, the goal is to catch this awareness as early as possible so that you won't give yourself a chance to be tempted to go with those urges or to continue going with the urges. And so give yourself the least amount of time in order to see the self-sabotaging kind of resolve as a reprieve or as an out or as a viable option. You want to catch that as early on as you can. And so something, and I like to think in metaphors and in images, and often things just pop into my head with that, and one thing that I'm imagining is an ice pack. So if you're holding an ice pack in your hand and you squeeze one part of it, another part will inevitably bulge out. The pressure will show, and it will be felt, and the pressure will be imbalanced. So try to see recovery as that thing that's bulging out. Those are feelings. Those are good things. Those are thoughts. Not are the good, like positive thoughts or negative thoughts that are ultimately serving your recovery. It doesn't have to be all good. But instead of that part that is taking the brunt of that as just another behavior going in another direction with the eating disorder, but like staying within the eating disorder. And so you'll know you're pushing yourself too hard when you start to see other symptoms as resolutions or as ways of rebalancing yourself, as real viable ways. Recovery involves making choices that are unconditionally recovery-oriented and that don't involve having any strings attached. That you're pushing or motivating yourself to a healthy extent when the side effect of trying and staying in that determined place is feeling more feelings, facing things. You'll know you're going in the right direction when you sit with and ride through these feelings. And if you give yourself that chance, you will find that one of those feelings is joy. So try to identify if you're going too far and bring these questions maybe to your therapist by asking yourself some of the following questions, or all of the following questions. What am I feeling? What am I thinking? What am I looking for? What am I able to tolerate? What am I looking toward as a solution to an uncomfortable feeling? What am I scared of? What in life has a greater pull than my eating disorder? And what can distract me healthfully? And what am I using to distract myself? And is it healthy or not? It's okay to not make every meal a challenging one, so long as you define beforehand and keep track, as this often changes throughout recovery, the levels of challenge. So you might be able to handle, say, a normal challenge meal, whatever that is for you, not a safe meal, one that is challenging, but that is a somewhat manageable, like a challenge. So you might be able to handle that. Once and at some point starting that thought over. At one point, something that you may have considered like a super, super challenging meal may now be a normal challenge meal, just for, I can't think of another word to really use for that. But and so when that happens, and it will happen if you continue in recovery, don't shortchange yourself by only having that which is the newly normal challenge and never upping the super challenge level, never increasing what is, what you can consider challenging. Continue to go with that and don't hold yourself back. But at the same time, maintain an awareness of that which you've already accomplished and what you can still work toward, and maintain an awareness of a pace that is comfortable for you without being comfortable for your eating disorder. And just as always, remember, recovery isn't linear. It's not as though you can always say, I've accomplished XYZ, and now there is this much left to accomplish. And be understanding with yourself. And always remember that everything you've accomplished thus far counts and represents your growth. And you're never, ever at square one, because you've always learned from your experience just by virtue of trying again. So have a wonderful week, and I will see you next week. Thank you.